people, my name is Rage, and welcome one and all as we try and crack the case of whether Crimes and Punishment Sherlock Holmes is indeed worth the price. Now, this game was an interesting one for me because it kind of just snuck up on me. I never really followed this through development and to release like I do with a lot of the IPs that I am interested in, and I've always been a fan of Sherlock Holmes as a character. I love the TV, the books. I think his world is fantastic and he's such a neat invention. In fact, when I was little, I was convinced he was real, and I was so upset when I found out that he was just a fictional character. But either way, he's such a complex and unstable character living in such a rich world with such unique supporting characters, and the way he operates and the cases, it's always been kind of difficult to fully encapsulate that in a video game. And if you're wanting a TLDR for this game, I will say that so far this is by far the best imagining of Sherlock Holmes in a game that I have played in my life, which is really quite good. So what I'm going to do is start a new game. I've played quite far into this game, but I'm going to do the very first case for you guys. I'm not even going to complete it the whole way because this game really thrives on its "you've cracked the case" reveal, dun 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 dun, like a lot of Sherlocky type things, and indeed a lot of just crime things in general. So we're going to not watch this movie because it's not all that interesting, and we're going to start with the first case, the fate of Black Peter. And it's a really nice introduction to the world, the characters, how they're interpreted, because of course there's been a lot of different imaginings of Sherlock Holmes from the recent TV, I say recent-ish TV Sherlock, where he's more young, playful, but you know, there's a little bit of unstableness going on, and then there's the more like regal, astute, older Sherlock Holmes that is more akin to the original character. So there we have in the blindfold our Sherlock Holmes for this game, who is kind of a halfway point between the two main Sherlock archetypes, and you can clearly already see his unstableness that they've gone for with the character. He's just passing the time by being blindfolded and shooting random vases around his room. We initially start controlling Mr. Watson, who of course is a key character in both the Sherlock world and in terms of Holmes' character development, because he's always the one that keeps him kind of grounded, keeps him from going completely off the deep end, because indeed someone of his intellect, and that's what I love about the character, he's so intelligent that everything is so boring to him that if he didn't have constantly these cases to crack, he would probably go insane, or indeed, as a few of his imaginings have, turned to drugs. So we finally managed to make our way through the room of bullets to have our first encounter with Mr. Sherlock, and we can immediately see one of my problems with this game. I want you to carefully watch the mouth movement as the voices are going.
Quiet, please. I'm trying to concentrate.
Yeah, it's not good, but we'll talk about that more after this, because this is phenomenal. It shows you the cool sort of floaty text thought process of Sherlock Holmes, how he's identified from just the footsteps and sounds that it was Lestrade coming to see him, and I think that is really cool. It really encapsulates that amazing perceptive quality of Sherlock. So here we have Lestrade introducing the first case, Black Peter. We have a nice little first introduction. Even Mrs. Hudson is here to complain about Sherlock shooting up his room, which indeed she has every right to, because damn, her crazy.
Sent me a vase collection this morning. I couldn't think of a better use for it.
See, isn't that a really nice way to spin his character into a game? The fact that he's the type of person who, when presented with a nice, expensive, rare vase collection, or vase collection, however you want to say it, thinks the best way to do it is to just shoot them all for a bit of
A
fun.
little brain work would be preferable now. Do please tell us more about Black Peter.
So yes, the mouth movement, ladies and gentlemen, it is, to say the least, not accurate, which is really off-putting because you spend a lot of the time, as you can see right now, you spend a lot of time in this game close up on people's faces as they speak, and it's really just like, to see that their mouth isn't quite moving naturally, fluidly with the words that they're saying, and it may be a little thing for you, but for me it's a really big grievance. It bugs me so much, it really, really does, so be aware that is a thing. So he wants us to go to the crime scene, have a look what's up, and see if we can't solve the case of Black Peter's murder, but we need a bit of time first in order to prepare ourselves, and this gives us a nice little introduction to your home at Baker Street.
I should have Mrs. Hudson here. I also have several appointments that I must keep this afternoon.
Bye, Mr. Watson. So we don't even get Watson for the first case, which is again nice because it does give you a good introduction to simply being Sherlock. So here we are, actually in control. As you might have thought earlier, it's not actually a solely click and go places game. You do have full control of your character most of the time. In fact, the best way I can describe it is the bulk of the gameplay in Sherlock is the moments in The Walking Dead where you have an area and you can walk around and examine and talk to people. That is how most of the Sherlock gameplay will flow. For example, we can go see how Watson's doing, we can go see how Mrs. Hudson's doing, the legendary landlord that she is. We can interact with various things and see what Holmes has to say about them. He normally has quite intelligent, obviously, and good thoughts to convey, which are always quite interesting to listen to. So if we head to our room, I mean, look at him, he can't even make his bed. The lazy so-and-so. If we go over to our makeup stand, we can actually somewhat customize your Sherlock, which is really quite nice. Now, there are some hats, for example, the classic deerstalker that Holmes is so famous for wearing, you can't actually wear yet. You have to unlock it via various cases, so we can only use the default hair. What we can, however, do is give him a massive beard, but no, that also must be unlocked. So we'll just accept that is how he's going to look for now, and I do like that. It gives everyone a unique Sherlock, but it keeps the base face the same, so he is the same character in everyone's games. And then we choose simply what suit we would like him to wear. Now, I'm kind of partial to the grey suit, I think. I kind of like the grey suit. I like the red it's got going on. I think it's quite the fancy piece of clothing. So that's what I'm going to choose, but there are quite a lot of options. And then you get to nicely float in the air. I just... no idea. You get the odd little thing like that that's kind of like, what? Why is that happening? But it really doesn't break gameplay. It doesn't actually break anything, and it's really not a big deal. Now, let me introduce your journal. This is where you're going to be doing a lot of your reading, a lot of your thinking, a lot of your conclusion drawing. Now, there's not much information at the moment because we have just started the game. We have our maps, we have our characters, we can see, I mean, we haven't even met any characters that we've unlocked yet, but you can get a lot of information from this, and it's absolutely vital to solving the cases. But for now, let's actually get to the first case over in Woodman's Lee, the home of Black Peter and his wife. Now, what's cool is in the sort of soft loading screen where you get this inner carriage animation, you can actually go through your evidence and stuff while waiting for the game to actually get you to the location. And I think that's a really nice way of giving you useful things to do while it's loading to the next area. I was really a big fan of that. So here we are in the home of Black Peter. The police are here, Lestrade is here, and we're going to see if we can't crack the case of how he was murdered. Ooh. So we walk in, and the first thing that you can do is Holmes vision, as I like to call it. Now, what is Sherlock famous for doing? Being a master of observation. And here we go. When you're in Holmes vision, as I think is a much better name for it, you can see lots of little pop-ups that are Holmes' thoughts as he looks around the environment and takes in all the information. So what you need to do at crime scenes is make sure you really look everywhere, really get into the mindset that you are a detective looking for clues, and it does reward you for that. For example, we can see that the garden is well maintained. Now, that may be an offhanded comment, but that may be something that comes in very useful later on, so you have to remember that, and it'll be in your journal so you can look it up. And it really does help to make as many observations as possible. Now, here we have another gripe that I have with the game. The animations look really kind of... I kind of want to say watery, but that doesn't really mean anything. They're just a little bit sort of... I don't know. I mean, look at the character running. You can kind of see what I mean. It just looks a little bit off, you know? It's nothing major, again, it just seems a little bit half-baked, is the best way of saying it. But then again, this game really isn't about action or what's going on well, I say I mean, you know, it's not supposed to be a graphically or impressive game. It's not going to have top-notch animations. It's all about the intellectual side, the puzzle solving, the clever cases, the actual figuring out what's going on, and it does do that quite well. So here we have the now widow of Black Peter, and we are going to talk to her, and this is our first investigation proper thing that we're going to do. So we're going to ask her basic questions to try and catch her out, if we do indeed suspect her, and just get general info surrounding the case.
I heard a terrible scream, but I thought nothing of it then. He would scream all the time when he was drunk.
Now, I would recommend paying attention to the characters. Obviously, I've been talking a lot over them because really it's not that... It's useful to listen to them, obviously, but for you watching this, you don't need to because I'd rather you not be able to follow the case properly. So if you do actually go ahead and get the game, you can enjoy the first case as if you were doing it for the first time. But a lot of the characters have a lot of interesting things to say, a lot of good information, and a lot of them let slip clues that you wouldn't otherwise have found out without talking to them and going through all their options. The voice acting, for the most part, is rather competent. There are a few characters that I'm like a little bit iffy on, but it's really difficult to get a good handle on how good the voice acting is when the mouth movements refuse to actually follow the voices. It just drives me crazy. It really, really does. But yes, for the most part, you're not going to be put off by the voices. I kind of don't like Sherlock's voice, but that's because I'm used to him being Benedict Cumberbatch's voice, which I don't think is a fair criticism of the game. Alright, so we're nearly finished talking through all our options with her. We get to find out whether he's a lonely man, whether he drinks, what his habits are, what he was doing on the evening, what actually happened during the murder. Now, to be fair, the close-up facial character models are actually rather good. You can see a lot of detail, like, for example, you can see that she's kind of upset, her eyes are red, she's got the veins going on. There is quite a lot of realistic detail in the faces, and I think that is really good for a game like this, where you have to pick up on the smallest details in order to accurately solve the case. So now we are going to do one of my probably favorite things in the game, and profile a character. Now, time kind of freezes as you use your almost magical Sherlock Holmes-like deductive abilities in order to look over a character and see if you can find anything of note about their person. We've identified her locket thing. We've now identified that she has a Catholic rosary, which would imply religious roots. Now we can also see gardening gloves. Now this one is interesting because she told us that her husband did the gardening. However, the gardening gloves here are clearly feminine and used by her, which may or may not be something that we need to remember for later. And then finally, we have a look at the birdhouse. So we have a complete character portrait of her. We've identified everything. We can see what's going on, and we could just reassure her to keep her, you know, just going along with things, because for all we know, it could be she's murdered her husband for her fortune. But we can't just assume that that's the case every single time. As is normal with the world of Sherlock, the cases are never as obvious as they seem, and there is normally a dun-dun-dun twist ending.
Yes, Mr. Holmes.
So now we have made a deduction that she met her husband in Plymouth when they were young. How did we do that? Well, you have to quickly press the button before it looks suspicious that you're not answering, and then you have to use the evidence that you've acquired, read through your notes, and think, wait, how would we know that she met her husband in Plymouth? How do we back up that statement to this character, to Judith Carey? Well, what we know is that she had a Catholic rosary on. Now, they take pilgrimages to Spain, and in order to get to Spain, well, as Mr. Holmes is about to reveal to us,
pilgrimage to the Cathedral of Santiago de Compostela when you were young. That much is evident from the rosary in your hand. The shortest route for the pilgrim from England to Spain is from Plymouth.
And there we go. So once you've read over and taken in all the information available to you, you can make these cool deductions. Now, this also does bring up another issue I have with the game, and this one's a little bit more severe. If I'd have chosen one of the wrong options, there is literally no punishment for that. which opens up a whole can of worms, because what would have happened if I'd chosen the wrong option is I would have just been sent back to choose a different option. And what that means, the fact that there's no punishment or failure state or score, as arbitrary as a score is in a game like this, but it's just an example, it means there is no negatives to ignoring all the evidence, ignoring the conversations, and just brute forcing your way all the cases by just exhausting all the options until you get it right. And that right there is just terrible to me, because the whole point of a Sherlock Holmes game is that you need to feel like you are Sherlock Holmes. You need to be rewarded for being observant, for making smart deductions. You shouldn't be able to brute force your way through the game. That really, really irks me. It sets up this world, it sets up this ability to make cool observations with Holmes visions, lets you profile characters like that, has the journal to make like cross-examinations and figure out connections and clues, and then says, none of that fucking matters, just click all the options until you succeed. And that really pulls me out of it and makes me feel like I'm wasting my time trying to get into the mindset of Sherlock Holmes. And that really, I don't know, it just takes away the rewarding experience for actually getting successful deductions and cracking the case for me. It really, really does. So be aware that that is a thing. Now here we have the door, which we have just been revealed has tried to be broken into, but unsuccessfully, as Lestrade locked it last night in order to prevent the evidence from being tampered with. So if we go to Holmes' vision, we can focus on a specific area. We see the door, then the door lock, and now we can see the scratches. And then once we've seen them, we can examine them, and we are focused in on them, and we can see that someone has recently tried to use a knife to break in here.
Tried to force open the door.
I swear these scratches were not here yesterday.
Now, a mysterious visitor came here last night.
Oh, the mouth movement.
He's not the man for
The
job.
mouth movement.
This lock is not a difficult
But yes, what you'll notice so far is there's not really been much challenge, especially because of the lack of a failure state for making wrong deductions. But later on, there will be some actual puzzles that you do have to figure out. In fact, we're about to see one. Now, I must warn you at this point that if you are a little bit adverse to blood and murder and quite a gruesome way of someone dying, probably don't look at the corpse in this cabin if, you know, you're going to be affected by something like that. Just a fair warning. So here we are in the cabin of Black Peter, where he was brutally murdered. As we can see, harpooned, flies, blood all over. A gruesome, gruesome way to be killed. And this is the no-holds-barred approach of this game. You will be faced with some gruesome crimes, some sick individuals, and you will have to conquer those cases and make it through things like this. This is very light compared to some stuff that you will be faced with. So now what we can do is have a look around his room, see what we can find using our Holmes vision and deductive skills, and see if we can come to a conclusion as to how potentially Peter Carey ended up impaled to a wall with one of his own harpoons. We can have a various look around the place, acquire the logs, for example, which may prove to be useful. We can go have a look at the map and find out the whaling route that he used. If I was to go over here, we can see that he went from Dundee all the way to Hammerfest. I like the idea of a Hammerfest, just hundreds of people with hammers beating the crap out of each other going, yeah! And now if we go to the table, we can see one of the cool puzzle type dealios that we've got going on in Sherlock. Let's first look at the glasses, see that they've been drunk from recently. We got rum, a real sailor's drink. I drink all day and I drink all night. I drink, then I get into a fight. And that's the sailor's mantra. But now if we have a look at the tobacco pouch, we can actually examine it. We can first see the initials, Peter Carey, that makes sense, and then we can actually examine the object a lot more closely by rotating around it and seeing what we can see. So we found the back, and now we can open the flap, and then if we look into it, we can see the tobacco inside. Now this triggers a memory for our Sherlock Holmes friend. And this is the first proper puzzle you are faced with, and one of many types of puzzles you will be faced with. This is clearly a ship, as you can see from the prow here. So what you have to do is line up this 3D puzzle in order to make it actually look like a complete ship. So what we have to do, if we perhaps go over here, that looks fairly like it's lining up, but then you realize, hang on a minute, no. maybe here. Okay, that looks to be pretty close. So now we move the actual components that we found. The pipe clearly goes there. Where does the leaf go? Around there, and then boom, we have lined up the ship, and now we can identify what type of tobacco this is, which may or may not come in useful. Now I do like that. You'll notice I keep saying may or may not come in useful, because not everything is a part of the case. They've not gone for that approach where everything interesting you find. In fact, some things you can investigate massively and it turns out to be useful, and that is good because that is realistic to an actual investigation, especially considering how much Holmes overanalyzes things. You sometimes go down the complete wrong path for way, way too long. So you gotta be remembering that everything you do may not be useful, but it is worth doing everything. So now we can actually have a look at the body proper. We can see the harpoon. I mean, really, what a gruesome way to die. So if we go down to the pool of blood, we can see a knife to find out that he maybe tried to defend himself with this, and it is covered in the blood from the victim, so he didn't actually get a chance to injure his attacker. Now, his attacker has to be someone quite strong and physically imposing if they literally harpooned him so hard it went clean through his body and pinned him to the wall. So we gotta bear that in mind. Now these are observations that the game does not tell you. He's not said anywhere that, yes, he's hinted that a lot of force was required for the harpoon, but you are left to make the leap that if a lot of force is required for the harpoon, then someone pretty dang strong has to have been responsible for doing this. And I like that the game actually relies on you to make those deductions, actually putting you in the mindset of being Sherlock Holmes. It's just annoying that it kind of takes away from that by then having a distinct lack of a failure state.
After the death of Peter Carey.
But yes, this is certainly a niche game to say the least. It's not going to be for everyone, and it's more of an experience than a game. It's more like a Walking Dead type deal that you've got going on, because you're not really going to be dealing with high action, you're not going to really be dealing with shooting things, you're not going to be dealing with running away for your life, although there will be little moments like what I just said, but for the most part it is this calm, intelligent deduction, which a lot of people may find boring. I mean, I love the character in the world, so I'm actually surprisingly really enjoying my time with this game, despite the few grievances that I have mentioned. So now we have learned enough evidence to try and make a proper deduction. What we know is the break-in on the garden, we know the notebook, and we know that there's no gardener. So what shall we combine? Well, if we take the notebook that it was dropped in the blood and the break-in attempts, we can see that maybe someone was trying to get something before the body was found. So let's compare those two, and now suddenly we can make an ambush to see if the break-in attempt will be repeated, because obviously they desperately want something with how much they tried to knife the door open.
To force the door to gain entry.
So now what we're going to do is wait till the evening, see if they come back, and then see if we can't arrest them. So you see how everything is interconnected, and that so far, the information we gained from Mrs. Carey actually hasn't done anything for us. This entire case so far has hinged on the door scratches.
You've lost me.
So of course Lestrade is playing the not actually a very good instructor that needs... Instructor? My name is Instructor! This case got shreked. No. But yes, we do have these nice Holmes explain something, and the other character's like, oh, you're so smart, which always makes me smile. Though another downside I have is that everyone in this game, from Holmes to Lestrade to Watson to every character I've met, seems like they're in slow motion. They talk so slowly and deliberately, they take a lot of words to get to their point. It always feels like everyone is trying their best to have the longest conversations possible. Holmes should be snappy, quick to the point, almost haughty and pretentious, and just breeze over explanations and be confusing to follow, but he's very slow, explains a lot and deliberate, and it puts me off a little bit. I just feel like he should be a snappier character. So we've gone behind the house here because that's where a good ambush point is. Now we are going to end the video and the case so far soon, guys, because I don't want to reveal the end to you. But I will do one more deduction that will kind of make you go, ah, okay. So you do actually have to make some cool conclusions in this game. So here we are, waiting to see if the break-in attempt will be repeated. Of course it will, because we are, you know, playing a game. And here we go. But if I had to overall summarize this experience, it's definitely an interesting game. It's quite a good telling of Sherlock Holmes. The story across the 6 cases is good. They vary in length and complexity and the types of case you'll be solving. There is actually a refreshingly good amount of variance between the cases. It's not just solve 6 murders. It is enough to keep you engaged and interested if you are enjoying the experience. There are a few downsides, a few nitpicks like the mouth movement that kind of take you out of it, a few misinterpretations of characters, but that's just from personal experience of the characters. If I'd never seen any of them before, I'm sure it would be fine. And overall, it is a really nice crime-solving game. It really is, with the Veil of Sherlock obviously helping it. But
Mr. Holmes,
thing is,
come and see.
let's go over this first, and then I will come to my final conclusion. So here we have caught this fellow in here trying to break in, and of course that makes him instantly suspicious. But
Innocence.
what do you notice about this guy, ladies and gentlemen? What do you notice about him?
Retrieve what you had lost after killing Peter Carey, but we were here waiting for you.
See, even Holmes doesn't notice this. What do you notice about this guy? He is quite a weedy individual. He's kind of small, he's young, he's probably not that strong. Does he look like the type of person who could overpower and kill with the force to nail him to a wall with a harpoon a 50-year-old, toughened, muscled sailor who has worked all his life? Because to me, no, he doesn't. But he's being blamed by the characters for the murder. Now, that's just a conclusion that you can draw that may come in helpful later when you have to interrogate him. And I think that is a really neat thing that the game does leave you to make a lot of the deductions.
You are welcome in.
So as far as Lestrade is done, the case is closed, this is the murderer, everything's good. But of course, as I said, things are not that simple in the world of Sherlock Holmes, and there is a lot more to delve into. Holmes now wants to actually interrogate the person that we've caught, and during this we'll find a lot more useful information that may in fact, dun-dun-dun, of the case. But for now, guys, this is all I'm going to show you, because I think you've got a nice taste of how this game operates and what you're going to be faced with. And for my final conclusion, while I'm having fun with this game, while I love the characters, and while it's a pretty good telling of a Holmes story and a really nice imagining of the world, the show is called Worth the Price, and this game is expensive for what it is. You're going to complete it fairly quickly, and it's 30 quid, $40, and that's a lot for the amount of content and the experience you're getting out of this. Maybe if it was released sort of case by case at a cheaper price, or in bundles, or something that just makes it more affordable, or, for example, gives you the first case free and then lets you pay a lesser amount to unlock the rest of the game, just to give people a taste. But it is a big investment for a game that is so niche that you may not even enjoy, that I'm having a hard time recommending it completely. I am having fun with it because I love the characters, and it's a very interesting and different experience from most games, but it certainly is not for everyone, so bear that in mind as you think about considering this game, guys. I would say, unless you are a massive Sherlock Holmes fan and absolutely love solving crimes, it's probably not worth the price. But that said, I am having fun with it, so take that what you will. My name has been Rage. This has been the case of Sherlock Holmes being worth the price. Remember to like if you've enjoyed this and subscribe for more. Goodbye. You've been watching